Just a little announcement before we get into today's episode. I am covering the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion. So if you would like a recap of that, not the after show because there's no more after show now, but just the reunion episode, go back to your feed and check it out. I was very passionate, had a lot of emotions after watching that first reunion. Whew, and I had to get in there and defend Garcelle at all costs. And I'm also doing recaps of that Summer House after show. So the last two episodes have been recapped. So check on your feed for that. And again, it's recaps of the after show. If you want recaps for the actual episodes, you can head over to my Patreon. All right, enjoy the weekly news. Welcome to the Bravo Papers, a safe space for all us Bravo fans who love to analyze, deconstruct, and talk about our favorite Bravo shows ad nauseum. So join me, Bravo and Botox, and we'll catch up on all the Bravo news and read way too much into our favorite shows and Bravo celebrities. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bravo Papers, Bravo Weekly News. Here with your host, Emily, also known as Bravo and Botox. It is Monday, April 7th, and it's still not warm enough here for my liking, so I'm still dealing with kind of coldish weather. But, I digress. Okay, let's talk about things because this isn't like the busiest news week, which I'm kind of glad about because it's a busy week in terms of content. And by that, I mean show content. We've got heavy stuff. We've got like the whole like Kenya and Britt Edie thing on Atlanta, which is wild. We've got the Garcelle of it all. Southern Charm is wrapping up. Summer House is just having a great season. Like, there's just a lot happening. And guess what starts next week? Is it next week or the week after? I think it's the week after is going to be the Valley. Yes, it starts. Okay, if we're counting, yeah, it starts next week. It starts on April 15th. Oh, I'm excited. Okay. So I'm sure that once the Valley starts, the Valley's already had a lot of news because they're just messy AF. But and they're in the news this week, but they're gonna have even more, trust me. Once the show starts airing, shit's gonna hit the proverbial fan. Okay, so let's talk about, we have a little Bravo general news that I want to start with because then it leads into the Beverly Hills news and they are related. So basically, what it is that a former producer named Patrick McDonald, he was a former supervising producer of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, RHOC, and Vanderpump Rules. So he basically took to TikTok to kind of tell his story. And he says, when he was working on these shows, he ignored a lot of toxic things because basically he was just happy to be there. And he talks about how, there's a lot of gays like working behind the scenes who, are excited to just like be there and work there. And then he says that he found himself, it was an intensive job. He found himself like literally on his first trip. He found himself in hand-to-hand combat with a cast member who was trying to attack another cast member with a metal pole. Okay, so we know that was someone from BH, OC, or Vanderpump. I mean, there's quite a few who could do that. But anyways, he said that the field producers get the most done. They're overworked to the point of complete exhaustion by, maniacal showrunners. And he calls some showrunners and executive producers maniacal, but says there have been good ones as well. Okay. So he says VPR was good in terms of like the showrunner, the executive producer, and how it was run. So basically, when they went on these like trips, like vacations that the cast went on, no one was overworked. Like they would stagger it so that, the crew and the cameraman, like all that stuff, they could have the appropriate breaks. He says Winter House was great for that too. He said, because the executive producer actually cared about the crew, whereas then you'd have other ones, he doesn't say particularly which show, but I'm going to assume it's OC or Beverly Hills because those are the main three that he worked on, plus VPR. He says that there's other shows that'll just have these like maniacal showrunners who will make everyone work all the time. And, you know, they'll work like insane hours. He said that, you know, sometimes there was one trip, I guess, where him and the crew worked 22 hours straight, no full night's sleep. He said on many of the trips, the network isn't there because they're on a trip and they're overseas. So there's no presence. Everyone is at the mercy of like an executive producer or a showrunner who can be crazy. So if you don't have like a good showrunner, yeah, you're at their mercy, right? He said, you know, the idea is that like the culture of content is king. So sometimes the crew has to do ridiculous things to get the content, to get like a nice shot, or they don't get a break because they don't want to interrupt a nice shot or a nice scene. You know, so it could just be crazy. And, you know, example saying like there could be a camera person like holding a camera for like long hours, and those things are really fucking heavy. And, you know, because you'd have some showrunner who wouldn't stagger things, that person wouldn't get the break that they required. You know, there's no union, like the list goes on and on. And, you know, one of the reasons I wanted to include this story is because these are the people who needed a voice. Okay. Remember the reality reckoning with Bethany? The people who needed the voice were not the rich 1% white women who are doing it, you know, just on top of being millionaires or whatever. Like, those are not the people. And I'm not saying that people on these shows, like reality stars, can't get taken advantage of. But Bethany was trying to like get people to rally behind people who were already, in many cases, very privileged and who were choosing to do this and didn't necessarily need the money and could walk away and leave at any time. Whereas, you know, who already came from wealth. These are the people like this man, Patrick, and, you know, who get paid like a normal salary or in some cases very low wages, as he does talk about in the video. And this is their livelihood. Like, this is why I just could never take Bethany serious. Like, because if she really gave a shit, she would have been thinking about these people at least as well. But she wasn't thinking about them at all. Because the truth is she doesn't really give a shit, right? Look how she's already abandoned this topic. Anyways, he said, you know, he worked in this industry for a long time, but it was too difficult. The work culture, the like working these long hours, all that kind of stuff. He now makes adult content and he's very happy. He says he's been kind of iced out of, you know, the reality TV world since he's left, like in terms of like knowing people, but he makes adult content. He's, you know, a producer, filmmaker of that, I guess. He likes it. He's very happy. He has a better life. Now the post was liked by Ariana Madix. Would just like to point that out. He also, one thing, and this is what relates to Beverly Hills, is he discusses how great Garcelle was. So one thing that he says, because he made this video like right soon after Garcelle announced her departure, and he says that she was fantastic, loved by everyone, the cast, the crew, and well, I guess most of the cast, the crew. He says, you know, this is how you judge someone's character. If they are liked by like the camera people, the field producers, like all these people, that means that's a good person. And he says whenever the crew found out that they were shooting with Garcelle for the day, they were ecstatic. And he said it's definitely not like that with all of the ladies. Okay. Oh, I would love to know who it's not like that with. My God, I would love to know. Okay. So that is why I wanted to bring up that story first, because it does kind of connect with, you know, Beverly Hills in general. So let's go to Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, because we do have some news from that. Actually, you know what? Before we go to that, shoot, I was going to transition to that, but this makes even more sense. on the topic of that whole like reality reckoning thing, there is actually an update from the Leah McSweeney of it all. So if you remember, Leah McSweeney was basically trying to sue Bravo, Andy, all these things on the allegations that producers coerced and harassed her over her drinking problems. So on Monday, or sorry, not Monday, what am I talking about? In May, Bravo filed a motion to dismiss her suit. But on Monday, a judge has published a 100-page ruling that dismissed parts of the suit, but allows her to keep much of her case intact, including the crux of her allegations that producers directly coerced and harassed her based on her addiction. Okay, so the judge agreed with producers' oral arguments, which they made in a New York court in November, that they had a First Amendment right to demand that stars of the famously booze-soaked flagship show drink alcohol while filming it, since it is not incidental but central to the show's message that the drinking activities it portrays are authentic and genuine. I'm not even sure what that means. I need to like wrap my head around that for a sec. Okay, I paused recording so I could think about it for a sec. So I think what they're saying is that the RHONY show is trying to portray drinking in an authentic and genuine way, and they have a right to do that, I guess. But the judge said Leah can continue to sue Bravo over how they treated her drinking issues. So, I guess like she can't blame them for her choice to drink, but she can sue them for, I guess, the way that in which they treated the topic. Okay. The judge also noted that McSweeney alleged that the producers joked about her drinking issues in her presence, despite her request that they stop, taunted her about her alcohol use disorder, and tried to undermine her sobriety through harassing comments, directed other cast members to bring up her mental health and substance abuse issues and to call her a drug addict, and coached fellow cast members to further disparage her. Okay, so the judge said that, they'll have to answer for those allegations. He also rules that she can continue to sue over allegations that while she was preparing to appear on the RHONY spinoff Ultimate Girls Trip, producers told her that she would be able to go to AA during the shoot, but changed their minds once they were on location. So I think this was, let me just find. Yes. Okay. So the judge also wrote her request to attend an AA meeting could have been accommodated without unreasonable hardship or expense. Okay. So we are at the point now where both sides are going to be, demanding private records from one another, texts, emails, all that kind of stuff. And Bravo declined to comment for this interview. So yeah, I guess so yeah, like, listen, no one is saying that Bravo is innocent, etc., and that field producers aren't innocent, or what in this case. But I think, there's also something to be said for like maybe if the working conditions were better for even like the field producers, or the expectations, because that is one thing that Patrick talks about, is how the expectations for them to, to find content, etc., the expectations were so high. And maybe if those expectations weren't there from the network or, a quote unquote maniacal showrunner, maybe we would have less incidences like this, right? So the other thing is that, it's Leah's word against these field producers, right? Like they're going to say, like I think that they'll probably say maybe that they had this like joking relationship and she was joking about it too. So they thought it was okay. Like who knows, right? It's one person's word against the other. So it's a very difficult situation. Now, I guess if there are texts and emails, etc., then I guess that might help one side or the other. I don't know, but yeah, it's going forward. So we'll see what happens. If there is any sort of success on Leah's side, that'll kind of be the first and I guess only win since this whole kind of reality reckoning thing started. Okay, so let's go to Beverly Hills because we definitely have Beverly Hills news. Where was I? Because Erica Jane, our favorite sociopath is being called out on a couple things, actually. She's being called out, first of all, for not acknowledging the dress designer that she used at the first part of the reunion. So she's such a jerk. Like, she comes out and Andy's like, "Oh, who's this?" And she's like, "I don't know, some random designer that I hired," right? Like, come on, give the person a shout out. Like, you should make a conscious effort to know their name in case you are asked. Like, I don't know. I just and you don't know Miss like fashionista who's like always naming every brand. I really think that because it's not like Chanel or like a name that everybody knows, she could care less about giving them the credit. You know what I mean? Because she knows it's not someone like the audience is going to all be familiar. It's not a household name, right? And that's all she cares about is like brand recognition. So the designer in question is Valdrine Sahidi, who, by the way, um, is a well-known designer who has 2.3 million followers on Instagram, just saying, has designed dresses. You can go to their Instagram for J-Lo, Beyonce, Nicki Minaj, Cardi B, the list goes on and on, other huge celebrities, including other Bravo celebrities like Portia, Kenya, and many others. So not just some random designer, as Erica put it. Now, the other thing she's being called on is her taking credit for her song Drip at the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion after the track is featured in the movie Enora. Okay, so Brooke Candy, who is a singer, went on to Instagram and did like one of those little, live things. And she said, she talked about basically how she feels like she should have been given a shout out from Erica Jane. So, in Erica's defense, she did clarify that it's not her song, that she's a feature on the song. But I guess what Brooke was saying is basically, you know, she says that and she brings up, Andy is like, "Oh, you're on the album of this Oscar winning film." And at the time it hadn't won the Oscar yet, but whatever. And then Andy is like, "Wow." And she's like, "I'm just a feature, but yeah, it's won this award." And then Brooke says, "Well, why couldn't you have just used that moment to give me my flowers?" So this is what Brooke said in her clip. So she said, "I put you on that song on an album, which, mind you, featured incredible artists. And you decided to, instead of just like saying my name and giving me a little bit of credit for my song that features you, you decided to just say, 'Oh, I'm just a feature.' You could have taken that moment and given me my flowers, and you didn't. And I think that says a lot about you," she continued. She also talks about in her second clip how Erica hosted a private screening of Enora at AMC Theater at the Grove in Los Angeles and did not invite Brooke, which that to me is more egregious than the other thing, because it's like you're doing this private screening because you're kind of trying to like get some clout from the fact that you have a feature on a song on this album, but you wouldn't have a feature in the first place if it wasn't for this artist who gave you a feature. So why didn't you invite them to this private screening? Like, that's a little sketchy. Like, I can kind of understand how in the moment with Erica when she was doing that, with Andy, that she didn't maybe think of it on the spot. But then Brooke says some other things that make me think that maybe it was purposeful. Um, because then she talks about how when the song came out and Erica had the screening of the movie that she did not invite Brooke to. The other thing that happened is that she held this whole event in Los Angeles. And according to Brooke, she signed autographs, she took pictures. And the next day, she made a post on Instagram, said she wanted to thank AMC for letting her use the theater. She wanted to thank the fans for coming out, and she wanted to thank them and especially thank the movie for using her song, Drip. And then according to Brooke, she was not even mentioned in Erica's post or tagged or anything. And then, so Brooke says, like, how could I not have a problem with that? She didn't tag me. It's my song. She's literally taking credit for my song. It's insane. You don't do this as an artist. That's why. She's not an artist. She doesn't get it. But you don't do this. It's rude and it's delusional and it's wrong. Yeah, I agree with everything Brooke is saying. Like, like there's nothing else to say. So then Brooke sends Erica a text, which she shared the screenshots, by the way. And she says, so this is Brooke speaking. Wait, where did she say? Oh, yeah. Okay, here it is. So after seeing Erica's post, and despite the lack of acknowledgement, Brooke did choose to be nice when she reached out to Erica. So she texted her and said, or DM'd her and said, hey, you know what? I worked really hard on this song, and so did a lot of other people. Would you mind tagging me? I would really appreciate it. It would mean a lot. And basically Erica didn't even reply. She just hearted Brooke's message. And then she said, oh, she did reply. Sorry. She hearted Brooke's message, replied and said, done, with like the little pink heart emojis. And then that was it. So yeah, which is pretty crazy. And then, I guess Brooke replied and said, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Getting credit for high visibility posts is always great. Okay. So, like, why? And then I guess Erica, and then that's it. Erica didn't respond. But, like, why do you have to be told that you need to give credit to people who wrote a song? Like, it's not your song. Like, yes, you had a feature on it, but you are not, like, again, it's not your song. It's just like, this is so wild to me. So yeah, I'm glad Brooke made the video. See, and this is what I feel like a lot of people who still defend Erica sometimes, and with the like, she didn't know, we can't blame the woman for what her husband did. Yeah, that's true. If the wife is truly innocent, and we shouldn't blame women for what their husbands do. But I don't think this is that case. I think this is a case of a couple who are scam artists together, because Erica has a bunch of scammy things that she's done on her own. She does little shit like this, like not giving credit to designers, not giving credit to other artists who she's ripping off often. Even one of her confessionals this year, she was called out by a designer who she hired. He sketched a confessional look dress, started the process of working on it and making it for Beverly Hills, and then she all of a sudden decided she didn't want to do it because she didn't want to pay, probably because it would have been expensive because he's a real designer. And then she ends up in her confessional with almost the same replica type of style that she had made knockoff cheaper, but she still ripped off this person's design. Like, she's still doing this shit and she's never going to stop. And don't even get me started about the Marco thing, because that's her. Okay, that's not all on Tom. Like, that is, both of them did that shit, okay? So, like, I need people to stop with that. She's a sociopath and she's a scam artist, okay? And I'm not saying, like, we blame all women for what men do. Nobody's saying that. We blame women when they deserve to be blamed. And in this case, Erica, she had a hand in it. Like, I'm sorry. Okay. All right. What else are we going to today? What else do we got from Beverly Hills? We've got that. We've got, see, a lot of it's about Erica. All right, let's go to something a little different. So Teddi Mellencamp has been discussing her cancer a little bit more. She did an interview with Us Weekly, and just a few quotes I pulled from it. She said, I'm fighting for my life, but also for my family's life and all the people I love. I find out for sure June 1st exactly where we stand, if we need to do another round, if there's any other kind of surgery, or if it's the end. It's a hard pill to swallow. Oh my God. Jeez. If you were in a sad mood today, I'm sorry if I just made it worse, but jeez, that's terrible. Just the thought of that, like, as a mom, especially, it makes me just, oh, it makes me hurt. Like, it makes anybody hurt, but I can understand how, like, that level of worry about leaving your children, that's just so heartbreaking. Because yeah, and it's just, yeah, it's like it's not just about you, it's like your whole family, right? So we wish Teddi all the best. I saw that she completed a round of radiation. So she rang the good luck bell at the hospital and she posted a video of that. So again, we're sending Teddi all of our healing thoughts, good vibes, prayers, like just anything, whatever you believe in, just that's good, send it her way. Okay, let's talk about what should we talk about next? Let's talk about Vanderpump Rules because there's a little bit of discussion of Beverly Hills, so it kind of connects because Lisa Vanderpump was on the Bravo Hot Mic podcast and she had things to say about Kyle Richards. Because no one is ever going to stop asking Kyle Richards and Lisa Vanderpump about each other. It was like the friendship breakup that like shook the world, like there's some friendship breakups that are just so epic in proportion that 10 years later we're all still thinking about it and talking about it, and this was one of them. Okay, so this is what LVP said about Kyle Richards. She said, Kyle's not, as we've seen as the show's transpired, not always been that truthful about her own life and her own feelings. If I cross paths with her and they say the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference, I'm indifferent with her. She also says it would be nice for her to just tell the truth. She doesn't necessarily say specifically about what, like she does kind of mention like, her divorce and relationship with Morgan, but she doesn't say it like I have the information. She just more says it like tell the truth, which I'm not going to be over here disagreeing with because we all know how I feel about Kyle Richards. But another thing that Lisa talked about in this interview is her relationship with the cast of Vanderpump Rules. So where is it? Hang on. Let me just find it. So she's kind of asked about like who she still has a relationship with. She says she has a great relationship with Schwartz, Lala, James. Says she hasn't heard from Katie, but she's not surprised about that, which I was like, oh, okay. It's probably because your stupid business partner, what's her name, Penny, that you like thrust upon them, fuck them over. And now they're stuck in like a 2-3 year legal battle with her because LVP just has to like, be this like controlling mother hen type all the time and can't just like leave things alone. And she knows like the girls trusted her, so they listened. And they probably thought it would offend her if they didn't. But she does mention something like, oh, well, I think Ariana like tweeted at me or something like that. And I was like, what the hell does that mean? Ariana doesn't even use Twitter. I don't even think she has Twitter. She's like, but I think she just meant like social media or something. Anyways, does not mention Sheena. Just want to put that out there. No mention of Sheena. Okay. Then she's also asked about James, because of course that is what's on everyone's mind. And she first tries to, because, she had a quote like around the time that the news broke about Allie and James and the domestic violence thing. There was a quote from LVP that everybody was, rightfully so angry about, where she was just kind of trying to like make excuses for James, blame the alcohol again, etc. Right. So LVP first tries to kind of, in her answer in this podcast interview, she tries to kind of blame it on, being a matter of being taken out of context with the press. But she says, get it straight that I'm very disappointed with James. He's volatile when he drinks and he's got so much to lose. He's lost Allie, who's a great girl and loved him. She says he's a little asshole when he drinks. Again, it's always when he drinks, when he drinks. This is the problem, Lisa. And she says, what else did she say? She says alcoholism is a disease. So again, like that is a fact, fine. But like I would argue like domestic violence is not a disease. Like why is he doing that? Like not every alcoholic beats up their spouse or girlfriend or partner. Some do. And those that do have an additional issue. It's not just the alcoholism. If it was just alcoholism equals violence, then every single alcoholic and addict would also be abusive physically, and they're not. Sorry, Lisa. Like, it's just, yeah, she's still making excuses. That's the point. Okay. So she says alcoholism is a disease, and when you're in it, the devil gets you. So again, it's not James's fault; it's the devil. And she doesn't know if he has the strength to stay on the sober path that he's on. She said if he does, the world will be his oyster, and if he doesn't, he's this close to losing it all. Lisa, I don't know what fucking planet you are living on, but he's already lost it all. Like, listen, I don't know his finances. I don't know if he's still getting DJ gigs, but last I checked, he was losing tons of gigs getting canceled. He's canceled from the Bravo world. Like, nobody wants anything to do with him. Like, he better check himself if he's not going to be invited to BravoCon. He's not going to be invited to any sort of Bravo events ever again. He's canceled. Like, he's more canceled than Tom Sandoval. Like, Tom Sandoval has a chance. You know what I mean? He has a chance. There is a world in which Tom Sandoval can be back on our televisions, and not just because of the traitors, on Bravo in some way. And I think, whether you think that's wrong or right, we can talk about that another time. James will never be back on Bravo. Like, period, dot, done. Like, he has the same amount of chance as like Leah McSweeney. Like, it's not happening. Not that I'm saying they're both in the same league in terms of what they did. I just mean in terms of like people who we know are not coming back for whatever reason, right? Okay, so LVP, what else did she say? That's pretty much it for LVP. Meanwhile, Sheena was asked about LVP. So she was on Two Teas in a Pod with Tamra, and, Tamra asks about it, of course, in the messiest way possible. And she says she doesn't talk to LVP often, and LVP usually reaches out to Sheena when she needs something. That's what Sheena said. And then Tamara was like, well, she doesn't have her name like, she's not involved with the Valley, right? And then Sheena's like, well, she has her name on it as an executive producer. And Tamara's like, oh, of course she does. And then you can see what Tamara's opinion is. And then Sheena is like, yeah, but she has nothing to do with the show. Like, she has nothing to do with like any of the decisions being made. She's never around. She doesn't do, it's just like a name. But I mean, that means I guess she's just makes money off it, and she's kind of like a silent partner. It seems like that's what Sheena was saying. She says, she didn't even know when Kristen was pregnant. So yeah, so I guess she's pretty like hands off. The last piece of Vanderpump Rules news is that Tom Sandoval was on the Vial Files, and he said, and in terms of James and speaking on that, he said there's no excuse for a man to put his hands on a woman. He also said that he didn't go into great detail, but all he said was there have been other allegations of this from the past, and where there's smoke, there's fire. And then he said, that's all I'm going to say about it. So obviously he's saying that he thinks it's true, right? Meanwhile, oh, yeah, there was one other thing from Sheena. She also said that she recently hung out with Ariana Madix, which is true because I saw it on their Instagram story. And she said she hasn't spoken to Tom Sandoval, though, but she said, I actually was with Ariana last night. We had a mutual friend's birthday, so we spent the most time we've spent together in a while, and it was really fun. Sandoval, I haven't talked to him, and I don't even know how long, but yeah, okay. And there is another piece of Vanderpump Rules news. I spoke too soon because there's also Allie. Allie was on a podcast, and she talked about, basically her pattern of dating men with alcohol issues. And it was interesting because in the interview, she mentions that, the last relationship she was in, which is obviously James, was toxic, and that that she's dated two guys in the past. So we know one is James, the other one is another ex-boyfriend, I guess, who have alcohol problems. And I think that she said she went to a therapist, and her dad was an alcoholic who died when she was a kid. And she talks about, and the therapist, I guess, said that, you like dating these guys that are alcoholics, like you are trying to save your dad. And Allie was like very moved by that and like blown away by that because I guess she was like, why do I keep choosing these guys that have like alcohol problems? And yeah, I mean, that's crazy. That is crazy. So I hope that Allie continues, on this path of healing and that she realizes that it's not her job to save these guys and she needs to choose a guy who treats her right and who is not, not only an alcoholic but abusive, because that's an even bigger issue. Okay, let's go to some Valley news. Yes, because, they're sort of interconnected, right? So Michelle Lawley, who's now gone back to her maiden name, actually, what is it? Sani, I think is how you say it, but I could be wrong. But she revealed that Quentin Tarantino is the director that Jesse Lawley accused her of having an affair with. Okay, so I reposted this on my Instagram story, and very soon after, I got a reply from none other than Jesse Lawley, who this guy watches all my Instagram stories. I'm telling you guys. Listen, I think he's a Bravo fan. Like, because listen, I'm not posting about the Valley like that much. There'll be a lot more posting about it once the season starts. But he's been watching like all my stories with Bravo gossip for like a year, like since the last Valley season was on or whatever it's been. I think he wants the tea. I really do. I think he's like, ooh, what's going on Beverly Hills? And what, like I really do. I think he's a Bravo fan. Okay. I'm just saying. So, anyway, since this was about his ex, he did DM me and he said, Jax accused her. I never did. The weekend after they met Isabella, Michelle and I ran into him again at the pool and we talked real estate for his movie and tried to get Isabella into it. And I encouraged her to meet him that week for lunch at El Compadre. I was in awe. She met an icon. Okay, so yeah, I can see how Jax would hear that. Like, and again, I'm not saying like I believe everything Jesse Lawley tells me, but I can see how Jax Taylor would hear that story and be like, Michelle's having sex with Quentin Tarantino. Like, like I can just see that. But I'm sure we'll get more details when the season starts, obviously. But yeah, just to tell you all that's what's going on. Meanwhile, Britney's bar, which was supposed to be called Brit's WeHo, has been canceled, and it's not opening months after she made this like big announcement about it. Um, so she hasn't really given an update on the bar since February, and the US Sun is confirming that it is not moving forward. According to management at the space, it was intended to be at the deal, sorry, and where it was intended to be at has been terminated. So new management has taken over the West Hollywood restaurant where the bar was set to be located. This was just in the last few weeks. And the current managers have stated that Britney's deal was terminated before they were involved with the business deal. Okay. So I guess Brit's WeHo was never part of the deal with a new team taking over, and they do not have any plans to open it in the future. All right. So unfortunately, she just got caught in the crosshairs of a business decision. So it was supposed to kind of be an extension, I guess, of Jack's Studio City, which they describe as popular in this article. So I guess it's popular. I don't know. Um, but it's not, I don't know if Brittany's going to like open at a different location or something like that. I don't know, because like it seems like the business partners that they open Studio City with have other locations, so who knows, maybe they'll scout out somewhere else, and it just seems like this was a business deal that just didn't work out. So, nothing that exciting. Okay, what should we talk about next? Let's talk about Real Housewives of Atlanta. I don't have a ton of news from this, but there is one item that is making waves on social media, and it is an interview with Miss Cheekbones herself, Cynthia Bailey. So Cynthia was asked about, the whole Brit Edie thing, and she starts she's asked about Brit Eady and the pistols comment and the violence against Kenya, like all that stuff, right? And she starts by kind of saying, like, well, I wasn't there. And then the person interviewing her goes, but did you watch the episode? And she's like, yeah, I watched the episode. So I guess people are kind of taking that as like, well, why do you even need to say I wasn't there? Like, if you saw the episode and you saw, you saw what Britt said, like, there's nothing that you can say that's going to excuse that. And there's nothing that being there and witnessing it firsthand, there's nothing that you could have witnessed that would excuse bringing up pistols or whatever, right? So then she says, yes. And, Brittany using those words like gun and pistol is completely off limits. And then she says Britt made a mistake. It was not the words to use, but I can appreciate her being apologetic and remorseful. So a lot of Atlanta fans are not happy, very not happy, including Kenya, who liked a post that was, criticizing Cynthia. So people are like taking it as like, Kenya's like, fuck Cynthia, basically. But, people are very much like, Cynthia's not loyal. Nene was right about her. People are like pulling up old clips of Nene from Watch What Happens Live when Nene talked about Cynthia not being loyal. And one of those was the one I believe that Kenya liked. So listen, I'm not like jumping on the like, let's cancel Cynthia train, but I will say that the way I watched the interview, that part of it, and the way it starts, it does sound like it sounds like she's trying to make excuses for Brit. I'm just saying. And based on like Instagram social media activity, it also looks like Cynthia is team Portia and Brit, because all of a sudden Portia and Brit are besties for whatever fucking reason. I don't know. So yeah, like I can't wait to watch the rest of the season. Like, what is happening? Like, show me. I mean, I already know why Shamia and Portia aren't going to be friends, because Portia sucks and she's jealous. But, and I'm sorry, I've just never been a Portia fan, so I'm just happy everybody else is seeing it now. But I want to see like specifically what happens that pushes it over the edge. I want to see how these sides get divided. Like, yeah. Anyways, if you're not watching Atlanta, you should, because the season's really good. Um, Other people are pulling up as well what Britt had posted when this incident happened during filming. Because one thing that Britt had put on her Instagram was, it's never a good feeling being targeted or hazed by someone I thought would embrace me into a new circle that I never met. For the record, I've never once had possession of any weapons or threatened anyone ever. I've never even been to jail, in a fight, or even had as much as a speeding ticket. That's not in my character. I am hurt by the narrative that's being displayed. Wrong is wrong. So that was after, I guess, Kenya, put up her whatever porn pictures or whatever the situation is. And I guess people are pulling that up to just be like, this post was a lie. Because here's the other thing. In the last episode, not the last episode, but because I'm releasing this on Monday, so not yesterday's episode, but the week before, Britt talks about how her and her sister were like, had such a close relationship, and how her sister would always come to like fight for her at school, like whenever she was having like fights or conflicts with other girls. So like, it does kind of sound like maybe she's been involved in some conflicts in her life. I don't know. Maybe that's why she's never been in a fight, because her sister always fought for her. I don't know. But it doesn't like, it just, then she's talking about how I still have my pistol. Like she said, I still have my pistol. I still have my whips. She said it multiple times. So I'm not believing this, like, I've never owned a gun and da-da-da. Like, this is backtracking. This is fully backtracking, in my opinion. Okay, let's get to some Summer House news. So Lindsay, in an interview, says, or confirms, I should say, that Bailey was edited out of Summer House because she lied to production about having a boyfriend. So yeah, those rumors have been going around for a while. Now the rumors that I heard were a little bit different. I heard that she was like spilling information about things that were going on during filming, and then she was like going back to the city and like telling people. But it turns out that it's actually that they asked her what her relationship status was. And I guess she had a boyfriend, even though she told them that she was single. But then in one of the first episodes, they ask about like, hey, where's Bailey? And then doesn't Lexi say, oh, she's having boy troubles or something? I don't know. That just seems there's something fishy about that. I feel like that's like the cover story. I feel like the real story is that Bailey was not staying tight-lipped, was leaking information, was going back to the city and telling everybody like, "Oh my god, this is what happened at the summer house on the weekend." And she got spoken to and fired. I think that's really what happened because I'm not believing this boyfriend thing. Like maybe like if because yeah, like I just I don't know. The boyfriend thing is weird. It just doesn't make sense to me because she literally mentioned like having boy problems at the beginning of the season and like no one seemed to care. So I don't know. There's just something off about it. In other news, Lil is speaking up, giving some lemur energy. But basically, in last episode, and I think I talked about this on my Patreon when I did my summer house recap. Basically, Lil is providing some receipts to say that she did not DM Carl in the summer, that it was in the fall. So she puts a screenshot of her DM to Carl, and it says October 21st at 7:12 p.m. And then she says, hey, I don't know who taught y'all your months, but when I learned them in school, October comes after August, XO. Okay, so then you shouldn't have said yes when Gabby asked you if it was in the summer. Like maybe you need to go back to school and learn about the seasons because October is in the fall, not the summer. Okay? Okay. And listen, I don't even think that Lil is trying to be deceptive. And I don't think that I think this was just a miscommunication because when Gabby's asking her that question, she's also being asked questions by other people. And I can understand how it just got kind of like mixed up. And I do think it was a miscommunication on all sides. Like, I don't think anyone was like malicious. And I don't think Lil was like trying to hide something. But you don't need to come on Instagram and act like you're like so much smarter and better than everyone else with this condescending post. And like, just say, I misspoke or I got a little confused when I was answering questions and my DM to Carl was actually in October. Like, I just don't like this like snarky attitude she has, like everybody else is an idiot. Gabby asked you and you said yes. So that is your fault. And you need to take some accountability for your part in the miscommunication, which is what it was. Okay. What else do we got? Let me just see here. I think we have some Southern Charm news. Yes, we do. So Madison was on Watch What Happens Live. And we all know that Madison was kind of like, Paige's like friend when she would go to visit Craig, and they seem to have a good relationship. And, a guest calls in, asks the question, have you heard from Paige? Have you talked to her? And Madison says, of course, I always loved Paige and I always will. I just haven't heard from her since they broke up. I did reach out, got ghosted, and then she actually didn't congratulate me on my pregnancy. So I thought, well, maybe the silence is enough for me, and I hope no bad feelings. Okay. Not doesn't look great for Paige. I mean, I'm not one who loves when people call other people out on not like congratulating them. I don't know. I think she should have just been like, if it was me, here's what I would have done. I can understand Paige wanting to just cut everything off, clean break, move on with life. And in order to like move forward from this breakup, you have to cut off like all ties, including Madison, even though you liked her. So the way that I would have handled it is I would have just been like, I would have texted Madison and say, listen, thank you for always being like a fun friend. I had a great time hanging out with you and getting to know you. But, in order to like move forward from this breakup, I'm just going to kind of need to like cut ties for now and just like keep it moving. Like just something like that. Like just be transparent. I think I think if Madison texted you to like say something after the breakup, I think you should probably reply. Like, I think you shouldn't ghost. So I don't know. Maybe Paige thought if she said something, Madison would tell Craig, but you don't have to say anything of note. Like, you can just say, like, thanks for reaching out, you know? So yeah, it is a little shitty that she couldn't just give her something. But yeah, clearly, I think Madison maybe feels some type of way about it. I don't know. That's what it seems like. Okay, so what else did I have from Southern Charm? Meanwhile, Shep was doing an interview. And in this interview, he said that it's perfectly natural for somebody like Craig, but anyone in a relationship to mean like, oh, if you're going to be traveling a lot and traveling for work, what does this mean for our relationship? He says it's not a misogyny thing. It's a conversation that is happening between couples, whether you're a man or a woman, all over the world. He also says that it's just two separate needs. He says, you know, Craig just wanted a woman who wanted to settle down. There's lots of women out there who would want that. And Paige didn't. So it's just, again, two separate needs. He also says that Craig, and this I think is a big, I can understand his point. Like, I think everybody agrees at this point that they had just two separate views of what life would be and they didn't want the same thing. Like, I think everyone, that's one thing everyone can agree on. I also think that, like, I understand what Shep is saying about like he wanted to talk about like what does this mean for our relationship, but I can also understand Paige's perspective of like, you know, I'm having a milestone in my career and I want you to just be excited. Like, why do you have to make it about you? And like she said, like she's not going to war, like she's going on a city tour and he can come and visit whenever he wants. So, you know, I can see both sides, but he says that Craig doesn't have a misogynistic bone in his body. Um yeah, that's going to be a no for me, Shep. Like none of you guys on this show like to say that about any guy on Bravo is a stretch. Okay? To say it about one of the Southern Charm guys is an extra long mile stretch. Okay, Shep? Like, I could find many examples of misogyny from all of you, so just stop it. Okay? Just stop with that. Stop with the BS. And then he says that Craig's a traditionalist. And he's like, you know, I don't think that's a crime. No, it's not a crime, but it's also difficult to be a traditionalist and not have misogyny because misogyny and traditionalism often go together, if not always. I'm just saying. Okay, let's see if we have anything else before we wrap up for today. Hang on, let me just do a little scroll through. I'll just make sure I never leave you guys without all the news. Well, I guess there is one last little thing to end on, which is that a lot of people have an issue with the way that Erin from RHONY is holding her baby in her latest TikTok video. It's so stupid, this news, but I just wanted to share it. So she's holding her newborn and she's trying to do a like cool mom video. Like, I just gave birth 5 minutes ago and look at me, I'm already like making a cocktail. You know, the baby's out, time to drink. Like, she's trying to like be fun. Every time Erin tries to be fun and cool, it always backfires on her, which is why I find it so entertaining. And that's why I'm laughing. So basically she's holding her baby in one hand and the baby's like kind of cradling, like, you know, like in her like the bend of her arm, but the head doesn't look supported. The neck, I should say. Okay. And she's like shaking the martini and the baby's like the baby's fine, everyone, so don't worry. And Erin responded and said, "It looks worse than it is, I promise. LOL." I guess when I've watched the video like 1,000 times, because again, it's like all over social media, mostly people just making fun of it and making memes of it, or just like memes making fun of Erin. But I will say that it is an angle where you can't really see where her elbow ends and the baby's head, but the baby's head looks quite flopped over. So I can also, yeah, it's not, it doesn't look great, Erin. Okay. And people are like, maybe you should care more about cradling that baby's neck and less about making a cocktail. But, you know, Erin's gonna Erin, I guess. Okay, everyone. So thank you so much for joining. Don't forget, my Real Housewives of Beverly Hills reunion recap is already up. Go check your feed. My Summer House after show for the last 2 episodes is also up. Go check your feed. And if that's not enough for you and you need even more content, head to patreon.com/Bravo and Botox, where I did a recap of the Southern Charm reunion, the most recent episode of Summer House, and the most recent episode of Real Housewives of Atlanta. And I do a bonus episode there every week. Thank you again for listening, you being here, supporting the show, commenting, liking, subscribing, all that good stuff. That's what keeps me going. And I really appreciate it. I just feel like I haven't said that in a little while, but I think it all the time. So thank you. All right. You are now in the know for everything Bravo. See you next time. Bye. Thanks for listening, everyone. Your support really means everything to me, and this show wouldn't be possible without you, the listeners. So please, if you enjoy the podcast, leave a 5-star rating and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. For more, you can join my Patreon, patreon.com/Bravo and Botox. And for $5 a month, you'll get 4 extra podcast episodes a month. You'll also get early releases of Bravo Paper episodes and more. Please also subscribe to my YouTube channel at The Bravo Papers and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, at Bravo and Botox and at The Bravo Papers. If you'd like to buy me a coffee, you can at buymeacoffee.com/Bravo and Botox. You know, send your love through some much needed caffeine. And any guest that was on today's episode will be in the show notes, all their social media and contact information. So thank you so much, everyone. Keep overanalyzing Bravo.